Hi. So a question I get a lot from tutors is how do I actually make myself stand out? Because there's loads of people doing the same thing as I do. So why would somebody book with me and not with them? I'm not getting customers because there's plenty of people. So why would they pick me? So actually, how do you make yourself stand out from the crowd? What is it that makes you special? And why should people choose you to do that tuition for them? Because there is a good reason for that. And if people aren't picking up on that, it's because you're not sharing it clearly enough or often enough for them to pick up on that message. A good way for you to identify what that is thinking about what your values are. So the values are the things that really drive you in everything that you do, whether you're conscious of that or not. And it is going to be different for everybody. So they're the things that are important to you. They're the things that drive any decision that you make, any actions that you take, any things that you say, the way that you say them, and all of the things that you consider important in your life. It's going to be different, even if it's a very small amount of difference. It's going to be different for everybody that you come across. So it's really important that those values are a part of what you do in your business, because that's what you're going to be putting all of your energy into. It needs to be aligned with your values, and that message needs to be clear with your customers so that you attract the people to whom those values are also important. So what actually are the values that are important to you? They're the things that you believe are important in the way that you live and in the way that you work. So spend some time thinking about your core values. They're going to be different for you than they are for me, but I can talk about some of mine. It might seem like there's generalizations. You might assume that people generally are going to be nice to each other. You might assume that people generally would look out for their family. You might assume that people generally would like animals. It's not the case for everybody. The way that you have always lived your life isn't necessarily the way that other people have always lived their life. There's certain standards that we would kind of expect, and there's a lot of general expectation on what would be considered rude. But we're not talking about things like that. We're talking about specific values. So for me, I particularly find honesty really important and kindness really important, and learning, lifelong learning, really important. So when I'm in a new situation or with a new person, I will ask a lot of questions, share my honest perspective, comment on anything that I think is good, give kind feedback. But I have this keen passion for learning, so I will ask a lot of questions. Other people might think that in asking a lot of questions, I'm being aggressive or overly assertive if they have different values. So you can see how, just from some small example like that, the values that you identify as important to you can be very different to somebody else's. So even if you consider yourself to be somebody that chooses to be honest, and that might be something that's popular, there's probably a lot of people that prefer honesty, it will be aligned with something else. So you might have honesty aligned with bravery. So you'll always be honest, even when it's difficult. Honesty aligned with kindness might be a little bit different, because you wouldn't necessarily be honest if you felt like it would be unkind, if you felt like it might be badly received. Do you see how there's subtle differences in the values that you might choose? So how can you identify what your values are? So start by thinking about the times when you've been the happiest. You think of a point where you remember being one of the happiest points of your life. And then think about what you were doing at that time and who was around you. What was it that you believe made you feel happy at that point? Why do you think you felt happy at that point? Can you think of a time when you were really proud of something that you did? What was it that made you feel proud about what you did? What contributed to that happening? What made you do that? Can you think of a time when you felt really fulfilled and satisfied? So those times that you were thinking about just then, the times when you felt you enjoyed something that you've done, something that you were doing, it's because what you were doing was aligned with your values. So you can probably go online and Google lists of values to give you some ideas. And I would encourage you to do that after thinking about those questions that I just asked you, because then those memories can be the prompts for you to pick out the values that best align with those experiences. So go through and identify anything that's important to you, anything that stands out to you, and take your pick of which values you think are most important to you. Then it gets a bit trickier because you'll go through that list and maybe try to cut it down, aim for, well, you could go down to a top 10, but ultimately, if we can get to a top 3 values, then that will really help you to hone your message. That will make it really focus on the things that are important to you. It is hard to do because there'll be things in there that might be common for a lot of people, like love and truth and trust and empathy. And I'm sure that those things will mean something to you, but they might not be your key values. Yeah. So when you have to get down to that selection point, that's when you start to think about the things that are the most important to you. So it will be difficult, but it's really important for you to identify what those top 3 are for you, and then to sit with it for a little while and think, do I feel proud with the top 3 that I've picked? Do I feel like these 3 together define me, who I am? And does that create a picture of what motivates me in what I do? So then you can use those values to define your specific business model and business message, perhaps your mission statement, because the work that you're going to be doing in the business is going to be around those 3 core values. And the messaging that you share with your customers needs to make that clear.